Most B2B and SaaS companies are still struggling to run a successful outbound motion. Well, it's time to fix that. I'm joined by Charlotte Cailleaux, who's head of marketing over at EventsAir. We'll be sharing exactly what Charlotte's seeing in the field as a B2B and SaaS marketing leader and what works for outbound sales today to drive a steady flow of demos and inbound leads. We'll be diving into things like what are the fundamentals you need in place across customer research, messaging, and more. What channels you should consider, things like email, is it cold calling, is it LinkedIn outreach, is it lump email, is it something else? We'll be talking about the hard-learned mistakes that many B2B and SaaS teams make so you can avoid them yourself. We'll be talking about what you should consider if you sell into different regions and the main things to think about. We'll be sharing how outbound feeds into your wider brand and marketing strategy, especially if you're selling higher ticket software or services. And we'll be running an entire playbook, step by step, of how marketing and sales can work together to build a solid outbound engine. Let's dive into it. Hey Charlotte, please give everyone a quick intro to yourself and what you're up to.
Hi Sam, nice to see you and nice to be here on the podcast with you today. So I've been working in the SaaS industry for about 10 years now, starting for a venue and event management software organization based in the US and now working for another event management software organization headquartered in Australia. I'm currently working as the head of marketing for the company, driving all of the marketing initiative around the globe. So everything from inbound to outbound, partnership and other marketing related activities that you can think of.
Awesome. Looking forward to diving in. So we're going to be talking all things outbound sales, and you're going to be sharing some of the secrets and what has worked, what hasn't worked, what so many B2B and SaaS companies get painfully wrong. Because I'm sure, Charlotte, if you're anything like me, I'm probably getting 20, 30 cold outreaches a day through my inbox, through my LinkedIn inbox, through my email. Also with this podcast, we get pitched for that on top of anything else. So it's almost non-stop. So I think it's going to be useful for folks. We have a lot of marketing leaders and founders tuning in on how you can get the right targeting, how you can break through the noise, how you can actually get positive responses to your cold outbound. So we'll talk about some of the mistakes to avoid, what you're seeing working, how folks tuning in could implement it, and also how marketing should be kind of working with sales when it comes to building this program. So first and foremost, why is it that so much outbound messaging, calls or emails or whatever it might be, why is it so bad when it comes to B2B and SaaS companies?
I think the primary mistake that a lot of organizations do with outbound, and especially probably like smaller organizations, but having said that, I think some of the big ones do the same mistake, is just trying to go too broad. So it's not about reaching out to everyone at once and just like see what's happening and see who's going to get back to you. To your point, there's a lot happening in the outbound space, and we all receive like dozens of emails every day from people trying to sell us something. So if you don't have a good understanding of your ideal customer profile, so your ICP, really who they are, what they need, and when they need your services, it's very hard for you to be able to cut through the noise. And I think from my experience, and I've been there, like we've all tried to do outbound, very different ways, and just starting with what you can as well, and just throwing the net very wide and see what you can catch. And the reality is not only it's not really working, it can be a lot of efforts, but also it can be very damaging for your reputation. So you don't want that. You want to be very mindful about how you approach outbound activities. And it starts with a very good understanding of who is your ICP, what are their pain points, how do they operate, what are their priorities, and really making it more about them than about you. Starting your outbound email about, hey, we're EventsAir and we do this. Wanna chat? Probably not gonna always work, right? Like it's show them that you understand who they are, show them that you've done some research around them, and you understand their business and their pain point and what they may be going through. So that's probably the first thing for me.
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start for sure. I think most of us have been there. I certainly have in my early days running sales, like trying to target almost anyone and everyone, whether that was an email list or a cold calling list or whatever it might be. And it just makes everything easier when you've got a specific list, like you say, of target prospects that actually, one, probably have the problem that you solve, two, probably have the cash to be able to invest in your solution, and 3, ideally have historically kind of bought well into your software. If you've got that data in your CRM, you can see that this type of industry, this demographic, this job title, this region, and so forth, you know that previously they've been a good fit, so
Definitely.
why not go after more of the same?
Definitely, yeah, absolutely. And I think that today we have a lot of technology and systems that are available to help with this kind of initiatives as well. So we used a platform initially that was not necessarily a good fit for us because they just had like that big contact list, right? Like, and you have standard filters, and we would just go for it and try to find the right people into that list. But the reality is that we have quite a complex ICP at EventsAir. So we work and we deliver services and solutions for event professionals. They are very busy. They don't have a lot of time. They run everywhere. So the idea is to make sure that whenever we reach out to them, that we try to find the right time to talk to them. Like, it's not about mailing them thousands of times and just hope that for once they're going to open the email. So there's a lot of signals that we know to be true, like when is their event taking place? Things like reaching out to them just before the event. It's probably not the good time. They're very busy, they're running around, they're just trying to get the event done. But once the event is done, like this is where they start thinking about what went well, what were the pain points, like what they should think differently or consider differently next time as well. So, and part of the things they may be reconsidering at that time is the event technology that we've been using. Did it work for them? Did they experience any pain point? And if that's the case, it's sometimes for us what we find to be a good time to actually reach out to them and be like, hey, how did you go with this event? Was there anything that you struggled with? And then we can start a conversation this way. So very much being able to identify our ICP this way, like around key event state for them, around like the characteristic of their event, understanding if they had some sponsors, if they have a requirement for abstract management, understanding if they use another piece of text. So those are all the type of insights that is allowing us to get better at our outbound, because not only we can target the right person, but we can make sure we target them with the right messaging and at the right time as well. As I said, like you've got a lot of systems. So for us, we use Clay to help us with that. It's a very powerful platform, and we just get a lot of insights from that platform so that we can really get that messaging right and the right contact, and also just not emailing everyone at once. Like, we really want to make sure that we reach out to those people that we want to connect with, that we know could benefit from our services. We're very attentional about it.
Yeah, and I think that's useful. Real quick, if you haven't yet, why not join thousands of B2B and SaaS marketing legends enjoying the Breaking B2B newsletter? You'll instantly unlock my 90 days to revenue SEO and AEO playbook and video guide. Head over to breakingb2b.com and hit the newsletter tab, or hit the link in the description below. Right, back to the video. So would you say there's, at a foundational level, there's like core things you need to think about when it comes to outbound, i.e. you've talked about getting the right ICP, we've talked about the timing, we've talked a little bit about kind of the target and the messaging. I think you mentioned there about kind of some intent filters as well. Would you say there's kind of fundamental things before you even start building a program, whether that's going to be cold email, whether that's going to be LinkedIn message, whether that's going to be cold calling, whether that's going to be a mix of the three, maybe some direct mail, some lumpy mail as well, depending on what you're throwing in the mix. But would you say there's kind of foundational things you've got to nail before you even think about actually getting into it?
I think sometimes it's a bit hard to know where to start with this. Like, obviously, like everything in marketing, until you start testing, you don't really know what's working or what's not working. So a combination of like touch point is always best. So we do have a mix of emails, phone calls, LinkedIn connections, and so on, included in all of our sequences. And we just try a few things so we can see how people react to the emails versus the phone calls and so on. Other things to take into consideration as well is regional differences. Like, what is to be true for one specific region might be very different for another region. And for example, because we've been in Australia for so long, we have a very strong brand presence, and we've been doing more outbound activities here for a very long time. So we kind of have a recipe that's working. But when it comes to the US, we're kind of learning how that works there. And we know that here in Australia, whenever we have our team, like our BDRs or our account executives, giving a call to those prospects prospect, they tend to be able to get a hold of them. Like people do pick up the phone in Australia and they're happy to have a chat, like not all the time, but they manage to get those phone calls across. While in the US, it's much more challenging. People don't pick up the phone in the US. They just don't want to talk to anyone if you call from a number that they don't know, which is very interesting. It's a difference that we didn't know about initially. So now it's about, okay, well, how do we adapt those sequences and those touch points to be able to get through them? And SMS works much better in the US. Like, people won't pick up the phone, but if you text them, you have more chances of getting a reply. So these are like the differences that we noticed to be true for our ideal customer profile, at least. There may be some differences between industries, but I think that's one thing to take into consideration. And working very closely with your sales team as well. Like, they are the ones talking to those people every single day. So really understanding from them what's their experience, like with the sequence that you have in place, what's working, when is it blocking. You can analyze the data, and obviously the data gives you a lot, but be open to test a few things with your team until you find the right recipe for your outbound strategy as well. And once again, one region may be asking to do something one way and another a different way. And it's not because it's going to work for one that we need to adopt the same approach. It can be very different. And we're already very much seeing this between APAC region versus the European region versus the US region. So we have a different approach for each of these.
Got it. Oh yeah, it's vastly different. I mean, some areas in Europe, I believe you're not actually allowed to cold call, right?
Yeah, definitely. In terms of GDPR regulation, it's definitely much more challenging when it comes to the European Union. So yeah, that's a completely different world.
Were there any other surprises, as well as you mentioned US, it was super difficult to get hold of folks on the phone. Were there any other surprises you folks saw when you branched out from Australia to other regions?
I think like Southeast Asia is also a very interesting region because not only you've got the touch points, but it's also the messaging. The way that you're going to write your emails and present yourself needs to be slightly different in this region. So, there's a lot more formality when it comes to Singapore, as an example. Like, they're not as friendly, or I shouldn't say friendly, maybe it's not the right term, but it's much more like formal and, like dear Mrs., dear Mr., and this kind of things. You won't get away with a, hi Sam, what's up today? So that's, that can work for some countries, but not all of them. So it's also understanding these cultural differences, if I can say, so that you can really make sure that you present your messaging in a respectful way and that you approach those individuals and organization in a thoughtful manner as well in your strategy and in your delivery.
Got it. I suppose at a high level, for any marketing leaders or founders that are tuning into this, like pretending that they've perhaps done some of the basics, they know who their ICP is, they've got a decent idea of, backed by kind of customer research, customer support, sales calls, kind of the main 2 or 3 problems that dream clients are coming to them to solve and how they're kind of well positioned to fix it. Pretending they've got kind of that basic information, and then maybe they've got access to, I don't know, some kind of intent data, or maybe they're working off kind of prospects that have visited key pages on their website and looking to reach out to those folks either via phone call or via email or LinkedIn outreach, whatever cadence makes sense. Is there any structure that you folks have seen that works quite well in terms of a particular channel, a particular kind of messaging format? Because I know when I get outreach to, for example, on cold email, I'm a big fan, and I always do the same of painfully short messages. Like literally, I think when the funny story is, for anyone that doesn't know, I actually work, EventsAir are a customer of us at Breaking B2B. And that was ironically
that was
through
an
cold
outbound.
Outreach.
It was an outbound, yeah, definitely.
Pretty much 2 years ago when I started the company, because we're bootstrapped, we didn't have much cash at all. One of the first things that came to mind was I'll get a list of SaaS marketing leaders, which Kelly, your CMO, was the unfortunate recipient of. And I'll find someone that knows how to set up a cold email system. I'll get this list. I use painfully short messages in the email sequence, like super short. It was like, most marketing leaders tell me that demos are down like this quarter. I've got a weird idea that might ramp up organic leads from SEO. Do you want me to send over a Loom video? And I think it was something super short like that. That's my approach, but who knows if that's the best way. It worked for you folks, but it didn't work for many others.
Yeah, and I think, what you got right with your approach at the time was it was the right time. We were looking for an SEO partner at the time. So, we were actively in that research phase for it. I think that your message, to your point, was short. It was about solving our problem. It was not about about you, and it was quite personalized. And I remember your follow-up, you really took the time to make it about EventsAir and how you could really solve our problems. And it's sometimes very hard, and I get it, with outbound to be able to personalize to that extent. But it's also why it's not just about the quantity once again. It's about get a list, maybe even focus on like 10 outbound a week per account executive. You give them that list, a bit of an account-based marketing approach, and you just give them as much data as you can around those people that you have on that list, which is what we do. Like we get those 10 contacts and we know everything about their event, the structure of their event, when it's happening, like the complexity of the event, what type of technology they may be using. So any type of information we can have so that we can then have those sequences that are being updated with specific variables, so we can use those keywords that are going to resonate with them and really make sure that they did some research, they know who we are, they understand our events. My last event didn't go very well. I might be interested in just exploring what else is out there, and those guys know about me and they understand me. So I think those are like the kind of things that work quite well. Email is very good. It works very well, I think, across all regions for us. This is what we've seen. As I said, when it comes to phone calls, there's some differences. So UK works well. Australia and New Zealand, we're having some successes as well. Terrible in the US. Like we don't seem to be able to get through, but SMS works very well in the US. LinkedIn overall is a good platform. Like we've seen some good success here. Once again, depends on how you approach it. Obviously, always make it more about your prospect first rather than being too much about yourself. This is what you want. It's really showing them that you care and that you're interested in their challenges and that you want to help them do better. So yeah, I think those are like the few things that we really look at that seem to be working well for us at this stage. As I said, just be open to try different things with your sales team. Like sometimes having a preset sequence may not be the solution. Like, you may want to move things around. You may want to start with an email, or then if you see you have more success with phone calls and that emails aren't necessarily being open, then start with a phone call. Why not? And then follow up with an email and this kind of thing. So I don't think there's just like one thing that fits all. It's really try and reset, again and again, just until you get it right.
Oh, definitely. I think a lot of marketing and sales is take the fundamentals, take what you can, and then experiment, right? Like you said, especially with companies like yours that are working cross-region, because there's so many differences. But not only that, channels like cold email, it's changing so fast.
It does.
Folks are almost like, I'm sure the same, like I'm almost immune to certain messages, because you can literally just flick it in the home screen of your phone and you almost know straight away if it's kind of relevant to you or not. It's got to be quite vastly different to grab attention right now. And I almost think like the messages I sent you folks 2 years ago probably wouldn't work now.
Probably it changes so fast. And another thing to consider as well is your subject line. Make it short. Sometimes a question can be a good way to attract attention. So see what can resonate, and test a few things. Always test. And if you seem to be getting somewhere with like a specific subject line that seems to be working better in terms of opening rate, then good, keep going. But then if you see that people open the email but they don't react to the messaging, let's try to tweak a few things in there, see until we can get some level of responses. I also think a few things that's really helping us is whenever we have customer calls or calls with prospect, now with AI and what you have available, you can have clear transcript on not only what's been discussed in the call, but also what worked, what resonated with the prospect, what was the pain points and the blockers. And I think all of this gives you insights. And I've always been very passionate about it's important to take the time to listen to those calls, but I'm also conscious that we're all very time poor and it does take time to do this. And I think we now have access to technology that allows us to unlock even more insights, to be able to refine our messaging, to really be able to understand what is it that is working when we talk to those people versus what is it that we're actually not able to sell well. What are some of the things that doesn't seem to resonate with our target audience? So we stop focusing on that and we make sure we focus on the right things.
Yeah, it's good advice. I don't think most companies could go wrong just getting access to their sales school transcripts. And like you said, now you don't really need to listen to them like you can do, but you could just run them through. You could just literally download the transcript, run them through a tool like ChatGPT, ask ChatGPT for a detailed prompt, like tell me the top 3 or 4 pain points that are most prominent, tell me the exact language that prospects use to describe their problem, tell me the impact of not fixing it, tell me what their job to be done is, what their motivations are, and all that kind of stuff. And you could just break that down into a few bullet points. And if you keep doing that, you're going to really stay up to date with kind of what's going on your sales team's discovery calls, or maybe what's going on with their initial prospecting calls and kind of what's being uncovered there. And then maybe further along in customer success, like what keeps being a bottleneck with our product, or all that kind of stuff that you can then leverage for your messaging and actually keep it present, keep it up to date.
Exactly, yeah, understanding how things evolve. And I think it's true for every single industry because everything moves so fast in our world today. Like technology is one thing, but like it moves fast. Everything changes critically every single day almost. And like you said before, what was true like a year ago is probably not true today. So having today the opportunity to have access to those transcripts, to really have access to those insights and be able to stay current with those changes and those trends in your industry is just going to be key to be able to keep your messaging relevant again and again, and just make sure you don't, like become obsolete and that people are just like, oh my God, this was like a 2 years ago message. This is so, outdated now. Leave me alone.
Yeah. And is there anything else that you'd say is important for marketers to help the sales team with when they're getting stuck into this activity? And is there anything you think the marketing team should be responsible for, and likewise the sales team should own their side?
What we're seeing here, and look, we're still refining some of that messaging, every day, and also like trying to find the best approach for each region at times. But it's really keeping that open mind and that open line of communication between both teams. Like if you can do this, and I know that it's like, tell us what are the blockers that you're seeing, what's the frustration that you're having with the current process, and be open to that, and vice versa, like getting the sales team to understand the process that is being implemented and the why behind that. This is why we're doing it this way. This is why we're taking that approach. I think is going to be critical to that success as well. Like you just need an ongoing collaboration between the two parties for outbound to be successful, and being able to maintain that partnership is going to be critical at every step. So for us, it's a weekly connect with, the sales team and be like, how did you go with the last, batch of contact that you got? And is there anything we should review? And, like kind of understanding that. But also, as I said before, being able to talk to them to understand like what's working, what's not working. If you don't talk to them, it's like, how do we know that phone calls are just being such a pain? Yes, we can look at the record, but we can also just assume, you're not trying hard enough, which is not the case. It's just, it's like actually people just don't pick up. So, okay, let's work together to find, to think of something else and try something new. So yeah, that's the main thing.
Got it. And it sounds like you folks are seeing success kind of going for more of a tighter list, less volume, but it sounds like a more personalized approach. I suppose looking at it from the other angle, that works if you've kind of got a decent ticket size solution. I'd imagine if you're selling kind of lower ticket SaaS, then you probably have to go higher volume just because the time involved to get a hold of these prospects might necessarily work out. But on the basis you've got kind of a mid-ticket or above kind of SaaS or B2B solution or service, I believe that can make sense. Outside of that, is there anything else kind of you'd want someone to take away with kind of what you think that the general process that you're seeing in the market right now really works, or anything different, I guess, that initially you thought this is a bit weird or this is a bit unusual that has actually worked quite nicely for you folks?
I think like a few things that work very well as well for us that has been quite successful has been sometimes some outbound activities where you not necessarily try to pitch the solution initially, or even not necessarily always being about, we understand this is your pain point or something like that, which has been about giving them something. And then, people are just like, that's so nice. Yes, I would love to actually learn more about who you are. So all of our activities when we want to invite people to our VIP events, for example, this is working extremely well. And sometimes people are just even answering and be like, I'm sorry, I'm not available. But actually, I would love to know more about who you are and what you do. And the first email is absolutely not about us. It's about, hey, we're organizing that VIP event where we're trying to connect event planners together just so that you guys can share best practices and challenges and what you're seeing in the industry. And that's happening on that day. Would you be free to join us? And it's just like a different conversation starter. So I think that's surprising in the sense that I'm like, of course, everyone would be up for like free breakfast in the morning or something like this. Why not? But
sounds good.
Yeah, right? But the surprising thing for me was more that some people would just be like, oh, I'm not available. However, I'd love to learn more about you, even though that's absolutely not what the message was about initially. So that's sometimes, this kind of approach can actually work even better than just the traditional outbound method where you're just trying to pitch a solution or, and get to have a meeting with them to sell your product. So think about what can you give them. And the main challenge could be today, to break through the noise is that a lot of people would probably give you a piece of content or something like that, which is, why not? This is great. But think about how can you be different in what you have to offer, that's really going to help you stand out. And if you do give a piece of content and, you want to take more that soft outbound approach, if I can say, because you're not really you're just providing value before you ask something in return, which is an excellent approach for outbound. And this is what people should be doing. Don't necessarily gate the content that you're sending them. Just don't. People don't want to have to fill in a form to be able to access to that information. So make it available, build that trust, show them, what you have, and just don't be shy, to do it, because that's actually the first step to building that trust as well, which I think is another thing that works very well, focusing on the value that you give them rather than always trying to get.
Yeah, I think inviting folks to stuff is brilliant. It's worked really well for us, through various channels actually over the years, inviting marketing leaders to the podcast, in the cold email sense, inviting folks to get a free Loom video review, in your sense, inviting folks to your event. So it's not always like a direct sales ask. In the back of their mind, they know they're getting outreach, they kind of have a rough idea, there's something in it, but it's like you say, it's actually something that the prospect is likely to be genuinely interested in because it can help them, or they could learn something, or they could enjoy it, or they can discuss what's going on with their peers or something like that. So it's more I guess, taking that customer research initially, knowing what your target, your dream clients actually care about, knowing something that they're likely gonna want to do, whether that's an event, a podcast, a review of something, or whatever it may be, and then teeing up in that sense. And that way, even if they don't necessarily have interest in your product, your solution now, they'll have a good experience with your company.
Yeah, exactly. And thing to keep in mind as well, it's only 5% generally of your total addressable market is actively in market, in an active buying cycle. So it means that you still have 95% of that market that is worth just building a relationship with and not trying to sell them something necessarily. And it's how do you build that connection and that relationship and that trust so that down the track, whenever they are ready and whenever they start considering solutions, you're actually top of mind for them. So you're one of the providers, if not the only one, that they would come to and be like, hey, we talked a while ago. I remember that you guys are doing this. I'd love to start exploring further. So there's definitely different type of messaging in outbound, and once again, it goes back to the intent data that we were talking about earlier. It's understanding, is it the right time to actually start pitching your solution? Do we think that they are in an active buying cycle right now versus are we just trying to build this relationship and play the long-term game, if you will. So
yeah, it's so true. I mean, if you're like us, when your minimum deal size is 50k plus a year, people just don't suddenly wake up and decide to buy what we sell. No, it takes a lot of consideration, multiple stakeholders, a lot of offline conversations we'll never hear about. As a prime example, we had someone that followed our newsletter, I think for 3 or 4 years, and reached out recently. He was in Australia, funny enough, and he just messaged me. He's like, Sam, let's book a call. I was like, who are you? So, I've been following your newsletter for 4 years. I was like, oh, well, that's crazy. And it just shows you that sometimes finding the way in to break through the noise with something that's genuinely helpful to the prospect based on what your research around them, and then keeping top of mind, and then marketing kind of leveraging the assets that they can provide, if that's ABM or if that's a newsletter or if that's something else that's kind of keeps you steadily in front of that prospect over time. And it's just crazy how some of these inbounds come to life even after years and years of
definitely
time.
Definitely. We see that a lot with growing organic and brand search terms as well on our side, very much all of that, which shows the impact on all those activities on the long term, as well.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, really enjoyed the conversation. Please do tell us more about how everyone tuning in can learn more about yourself, get in touch, connect with you, or anything you want to share?
Sure, I think best way to connect would be on LinkedIn. So easy, my first name and my last name, which, as you probably guess, is French. So Charlotte Cailleaux. You can go and find me there. I'm always very open to talk everything around, obviously outbound, but also inbound. I love anything that is related to not only marketing, but also sales. I love understanding and talking about sales motions and, what's happening in that space. So anyone who would like to have a chat about that and, like talk about SaaS and how B2B SaaS has been evolving. I think we've probably seen a lot of changes the past couple of years and even more than what happened over the past 20 years, even though I wasn't in an active, I would say, in the professional life at the time, but I can definitely relate. I think there's been so many changes and it keeps changing so fast. So I was interested in hearing how other people are, working, the processes we're putting in place, the systems, the motions. So yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff, Charlotte. Really appreciate the chat.
No worries. Thanks for the time, Sam. Thanks for having me.
And there we have it. I hope you found this breakdown of use. And if you want to join thousands of B2B legends enjoying the Breaking B2B newsletter, where you can instantly unlock my 90 days to revenue SEO and AEO playbook and video guide, head over to breakingb2b.com and hit the newsletter tab, and you're going to unlock all of that instantly, or hit the link in the description below. And with that, I should catch you on the next one. Cheers.